This video on the history of Northampton Town could not have been made without the generous support of Nationwide and Elite Business Systems.
March 1897, the 100-year journey begins. The highs and the lows of a cobbler's trip that's visited all extremes. The heights of the country's top division and the edge of extinction. The first century ends with their first visit to Wembley, where the name of Ian Apkins was added to the long list of famous names in claret and white. This is the Cobbler's Tale.
It really started with a man called Pat Darnell. Darnell was a solicitor in the town, coroner, and very well respected. He was also a big sportsman. He was invited to go to Leicester to watch the Northampton Town boys play Leicester boys as a curtain raiser to Leicester Foss against Notts County League game. He went, watched the game, stayed, watched the league game, got so hooked on league football that he had to come back and do something about it. Jones was a school teacher who'd moved from Wellingborough to Northampton and couldn't understand why the county town had no professional football team when, of course, Kettering, Wellingborough, Rushden, Desborough all had. These two men got together. The meeting was set up in what was then the Princess Royal on the Wellingborough Road, and the landlord became the club treasurer. Jones, the teacher, became the secretary, and Darnell was the first president.
They started in the sort of minor leagues and played teams like Earthlingborough and Wellingborough. Gradually got into the Midland League and then the Southern League, winning that league in sort of 1908 and playing in the Charity Shield, which was the first time and they played Newcastle at Stamford Bridge, which was well, not the equivalent of Wembley then, but sort of the national ground where cup finals were played. They reckon then the Southern League was the equivalent of our old second division, which is now the first division. So it was a high standard of football, and we lost to Newcastle.
The greatest manager's got to be probably Herbert Chapman because of what he did for the club at a time when there was no money about and the kind of players he brought in. Chapman had a couple of spells there as a player and was with Tottenham Hotspurs when Northampton offered the manager's job to a Tottenham Hotspur player, Walter Bull. Bull turned the job down and suggested Chapman tried it, and Chapman wrote and he put those magic words in, "Pay me what you like," and he got the job. And he revolutionised the club, there's no doubt about it. He came back, he brought in experienced men, and within 2 seasons, from a club that finished bottom of the Southern League, they won the championship.
The season before that championship winning campaign, Herbert Chapman realised that something revolutionary was needed to push the Cobblers towards the Southern Division title. That they won it owes a lot to Chapman's foresight, and to the talents of the man who became Northampton Town's first ever bye, Edwin Lloyd Davis. Defender and a natural leader, a Welsh international, he cost a total of £400. Chapman always said he sent a piece of himself out onto the field with Lloyd Davis. No wonder the military-esque Welshman went on to captain the club he served for 12 years. Thus Lloyd Davis cemented himself among the Cobblers' early heroes, in a list of legends that includes the 5'0" Fred Fanny Walden, who netted a hat-trick on his debut against Luton in the 1909-10 season.
Fanny Walden, of course, there was an uproar when he left, you know, and they collected money for him to stop, and then he was transferred, you know, that was a bit sad. But he was a wonderful player, and of course he was a legend at Spurs. I mean, he came back to the Cobblers later, but it was near the end of his career. And of course that's his cap there.
While not becoming champions again, the Cobblers kept a respectable place most years until the final season of the Southern League in 1919-20. The club became founder members of Division 3 South in 1920, and the following decade will be remembered for the prolific goal-scoring exploits of Billy Pease and Louis Page. Pease was the first of the two to join the club, coming from Leeds City in 1920. Page followed 2 years behind in a transfer from Stoke City. The two became firm favourites with the county ground crowds for their thrilling wing-forward play, and it was no surprise that both eventually left for greater things. The pair made England debuts in the same game, a 3-3 draw with Wales. Sadly though, after they'd left the Cobblers. Pease moved to Middlesbrough, while Page returned to his native Lancashire with Burnley. The league form throughout the 30s is perhaps best described as a period of comfortable stability. There were, however, notable performances in the FA Cup, most of all in the 1933-34 season.
We knocked Huddersfield Town out of the FA Cup. Now, Huddersfield were kind of the Manchester United of today. To beat them on their own ground was a great thing, but like everything else, it turns around. We played Preston, who were an average First Division side, and they absolutely hammered us, so it was obviously just one of those things on the day.
With sad irony, this was the season which saw the death of the Cobblers' early favourite Herbert Chapman, who had gone on to take Huddersfield and Arsenal to so much success. Where Pease and Page had left off in the 1920s, inevitably other Cobblers' favourites grew to take their place in the hearts of the fans.
The half-back line in the 30s had a famous half-back line, Alan Maloney and O'Dell, which was the best in the league, or considered to be the best in the league. And of course one of the most popular players also in the late 1930s was Danny Tolland, and he was a sort of a ball-playing inside forward, and when he left there was an uproar. I've got bits in these scrapbooks about it, the letters to the paper about it, you know, and I think he was transferred to Bristol Rovers or somewhere, and there was an absolute uproar. He must have been, I should think Tolland must have been one of the three most popular players the Cobblers have ever had.
If a young British soldier on war duty in Normandy in 1944 had been standing and not crouching when a German sniper's bullet entered his helmet, then the county ground would not have seen the man that holds the proudest of all Cobblers' records. 521 league appearances, including 226 consecutively, 84 goals, not to mention his cup games and goals. Tommy Fowler has pulled on the claret and white jersey more times than anybody else, a record unlikely to be bettered for a very long time. Returning injured from the war, Fowler was convalescing in Bedford when his memorable senior career took off.
I think the first day we were on parade, Jack Jennings, the trainer of the Cobblers at that time, was taking the parade. He was on the PT staff, and the first thing he asked was if there were anybody who played football. They'd put their hands up, so my hands shot up. And I think that's the beginning of my career at the Cobblers.
Flash Fowler. Tommy was a great winger. He like me, I hadn't got much of a left foot, but he certainly hadn't got a right foot. But he used to cross the ball, and Jack used to come in and finish him off. It was lovely, yeah.
When I first went up there, I got a bit of stick, actually, from the Northampton crowd for a season or so, season or two, but after that, when I bedded in up there, they were great, really, a great crowd of people. I was pretty quick, and I think that's what got me out of a lot of trouble. Why I had very, very few injuries, why I played so many games consecutively. I was very, very, very quick. I've seen Jack English, who's very more lightly framed than what I were. I've seen him being kicked up and down all the match, and the fullback has not even had his name taken. And it certainly, well, in these days, a yellow card comes out, doesn't it? You've only got to touch somebody over and the yellow card comes out. But that's why I always say, you know, we get ball players like Freddie Ramscar that we had. These days, they'd have a birthday. I think I would as well, you know.
Tommy used to sleepwalk, and I just remember when we was at Southampton, there was 3 of us in the room, and I can remember it playing, and my bed was here, and in the middle of the night, I could feel something touching me, like, and I woke up, and there's Tommy standing over me, saying, "Get up, get up." He's sleepwalking. And I said, "Tommy, go back to bed." And he just went back, got in his bed.
There were a great crowd of lads up there. Couldn't have been better, really. And I'm sure it must have been a lot better in those days than what it is today. You know, the money doesn't mean anything, really. I always used to say, when I first went up there, that some of those lads would play for nothing. They were so keen and, you know.
The spirit that was so much in evidence at the club under manager Bob Dennison in the early 50s and again under Dave Smith in the latter half of the decade was never greater than in 1958. Over the years, the Cobblers would build up a notable collection of FA Cup scalps. Huddersfield in 1933-34, and in January 1958 it was the turn of First Division Arsenal, a day not to be forgotten by one young cobbler.
We didn't have big squads like they do nowadays. You were just all there together. All the lads we all trained together, and I was just there. And I think it was Wednesday, Alan went down with the food poisoning, and Thursday Dave Smith came and said to me, "Bobby, you're playing on Saturday against the Arsenal." And that was it. Nerves. Big game like that.
No team used to like coming to the Cobblers. No, when they come through the door, you can hear them saying, "Oh, I don't fancy it today," because it was quite physical, you know. We used to get stuck in quite a bit. You was allowed to that in them days.
I mean, I was training with them and everything, and we were having special training, egg and sherry, every morning, and it was. I've never had egg and sherry before in my life, but it seemed to do the trick. You could hear all the people outside, the crowds, you know, and it was a little bit nerve-wracking, that was. Because I've never played in front of a crowd. I mean, there was, 21,000, nearly 22,000 people, and you can hear them, and that is something different.
Quite a thrill, really, because we had a full house that day. Dave Boyne being on the opposite side as well, who had already been a player at the Cobblers at that time. It was quite a thrill, you know, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Dave Boyne, I was thinking, I must have been one of the fastest blokes up Northampton. He couldn't catch me. After just over 5 minutes, I scored a goal, you know. Well, I don't think anybody could have planned it at all, you know. It was just a free kick, and we all went up to head the ball, and I just happened to get up a bit higher than the others, and it looped into the net. So, I mean, what more could I ask for? I couldn't hear much of the noise because of the players. I mean, they were all round slapping you on the back and congratulating you and all that, you know, and so that was there more than the crowd. You know, it's what a start. 5 minutes and you're 1-0 up against one of the best teams in the country.
2 more goals from Barry Hawkins and Ken Leake against Arsenal's solitary reply sent news of the shock downfall of a cup giant at the county ground all around the country. For Bobby Tebbert, it also meant an addition to his wardrobe.
The tailor at Wellingborough, where I used to go regular, you know, to get all my clothes from him, he was an Arsenal supporter. Of course, him being an Arsenal supporter and I was playing against the Arsenal, he just said, "If you beat the Arsenal, I'll give you a suit," because I wanted a new suit, you see. So I said, "Right, you're on." Of course, we beat the Arsenal 3-1, so he gets in touch with the newspapers and that, and he says, "I'm going to get something out of this. I'm giving a suit away." So he said, "I'm going to get something out of it. I'll get a bit of advert, you know, some advertising," and he did.
And then we played Liverpool in the next round after that. But I think the Liverpool game was more of a memory to me because I was born up there, about 8 miles from Anfield, And of course all my family were there. So it was quite a thrill for me to play there.
50-odd thousand there. I think Everton was supposed to play that day, but that was cancelled. So there were more people there than we thought there would be, but the pitch was atrocious, but it was my style really. A little bit of mud, and because it was snow, and that will be in my memory forever. That it was wonderful.
When you're going towards the Spine Cup, the crowd is, well, say to this world. Not now, it's not, because I've altered the ground, but the crowd used to all come forward like that, and they'd all go that way, and then they'd all go back. And when Liverpool attack that end, they start, as soon as Liverpool get to the halfway line, the cheer goes up, and it doesn't stop until you start coming back again. It's frightening. Frightening, that was.
We could have won it. It wasn't as though we was overrun, because I think I played left half and Ray Yeoman played at right half, and we were the two smallest players on the pitch, and we played against Arthur Rowley and Bimpson, who were 6'1", 6'2", both of them, and they never won a ball in the air.
I think it was Billy Liddell cracked the ball over, and Ben went up at the far post, went to head it out, and it just glanced off his head and went in the top corner of the net. And only a few months ago I went up to him, and because we was talking, and he said about the goal against Arsenal. I said, yeah, but you scored a good one, Ben, against Liverpool. And he said, don't remind me. Everybody keeps having him about it, but it was just unlucky, very unlucky. I mean, when you're 2-1 down, you've got nothing to lose, you just throw everything at them, and we did. We threw everything at them, and they just broke away and scored again, made it 3-1. Very unfortunate.
The promise that the young Bobby Tebbert displayed in that cup run was sadly cut short. He broke a leg in a match at Walsall and was overlooked by the club just a month after recovery. After his illustrious run, Tommy Fowler left the club in 1961 for Aldershot. As he ended his own personal Cobblers chapter, so a whole new era began. The 1960s is the era for which most people will remember the Cobblers, from the 4th Division to the 1st to the 4th. Dave Bowen was the man in charge in the 1960-61 season, when the club gained promotion on the merits of their league position for the first time ever. 1961 and 62, and a season in the Football League Division 3. The club began to accumulate the personnel that would take them on the ultimate football roller coaster.
I came from Exeter City. I think the fee was about 2.4 million. No, sorry, 2.5 grand. And I had an absolutely wonderful time. I have very, very fond memories, obviously, from 1961 till I left.
When you talk about Foley, and there's a left back called Mickey Everett, and a centre half called Terry Branson, and John Corella, and a lad called Derek Leck. I mean, they were hard men. You talk about your hard men nowadays. Couldn't live with these men. They, honest to God, they couldn't live with them. And as I say, they weren't dirty. Corella used to Corella the killer. Corella was the hardest man I've ever come across. I've seen them all shine away from Corella. Your Tommy Smiths, your Rowan Harrises, your Norman Hunters. I've seen them all. 50-50s with Corella. Poof, out the door. Don't want to know.
I came as an outside right in those days. It gradually changed after the 66 World Cup when Alf Ramsey did away with wingers. I became what they called a striker. Playing with players like George Hudson, people like this. As I say, as far as I was concerned, I was just a goal scorer. I was never a ball player, but and I think when he did away with wingers, it perhaps suited me even better.
I thought the 3rd Division team was probably as good a team as you could get, and then we lost 1 or 2 players along the way. The 2nd Division team was much more adventurous, much more hard-working, but it didn't really have the class of the 3rd Division team. the forward line that we had in the third division was second to none. I mean, we had 3 or 4 players who I think got over 30 goals. You never get that.
The best side to watch wasn't the side that went up from the second division to the first. I think was the side that won the third division when Foley was captain. The third division side with Hales and I think it was Holton and Ashworth and all those. That was a wonderful side to watch. Because when they went from the second to the first, they won a lot of games, seemed to win a lot of games by 2-1 and 1-0, you know. They were a marvellous side, they were fit as anything. Wonderful side, but they weren't as exciting, you know, as the third division side.
At home we were unbeatable. Nobody fancied coming to Northampton Town, nobody, and I don't blame them, mind you, I don't blame them. But we always won our home games, and when we were travelling away, we always fancied we were going to be strong enough to nick a point, and that's all you need to do in these days. I mean, it wasn't like 3 points for a win, it was a 2 and a 1 for a draw then, you know. And if you could draw your away games and win your home games, you were set to win promotion, or whatever it was. That's the way it was in these days. And we were lucky enough to do that.
We had some great individual players, you know, too many, you know, to mention them all in terms. Johnny Carilla was a very good player in the third division, Terry Branston, Cliff Holton, Lord Reston, Alec Ashworth. And then in the second division we had Joe Kiernan, who was a very fine player.
There was a myth about I couldn't tackle. I mean, to me, I disagree with that. People say to me, you can't tackle, Kieran can't. I disagree with that entirely. I couldn't tackle these lads. They couldn't, but they couldn't play maybe the way I played.
Everybody came in, we were all virtually thrown together, free transfers or small fees, apart from me, obviously, as I said, I was 2 million. And I think the directors at that stage were wonderful. Wally Penn, Fred York. I know Fred York's trick was to stop the bus and for everybody to have a drink and say, well done, David, the lads played well, irrespective of whether we got beat or won. We always had a drink, we always had a laugh. Wally Penn used to sing The Smoke Goes Up the Chimney all the time, and the lads used to join in. And as Wally went on, the song still remained the same, but the lads changed. And a lot of the younger lads who come into the team, they all seemed to gel in together. The kit was put on the table, everybody picked the kit up and trained in the kit. And when you got better, you had a number to indicate that you'd sort of arrived. Joe Payne was there as well, he was fine. And there was nobody here. If you wanted your house doing, old Tom used to come down and sort out your house and make sure everything was all right. But the whole atmosphere of the football club was very, very close-knit. And when we went out together, we all went out together, which was a great thing.
Finishing 8th in their first year in Division 3 would have been considered successful enough. But the following 1962-63 season, Dave Bowen's Cobblers became champions. There followed one more year of consolidation in 63-64, and then it was promotion time again. They lay 1 point behind champions Newcastle United on April the 24th, 1965. A win in place of the 1-1 draw against Portsmouth that day would have seen them take the second division title. Nevertheless, life awaited in the top footballing division in the country.
The coach Joe Mercer, the biggest sporting event of 1966 in his eyes was not England winning the World Cup, but Northampton Town, a club like Northampton Town, getting to the first division. And when you look back, it's been done 2 or 3 times since then, like, you know, with your Watfords and your Wimbles and that, you know, but I think it was a bit different. In these days it was unheard of, and Northampton was the first to do it. And deserved to, you know, deserved to.
I also became an international player during that time, and a lot of the lads used to call me an international star, which I believed I was, to be honest, but they didn't give me much help because they always used to have a go at me. But seriously, I got capped from 62 to 67, so in all, as I said, coming from Exeter City, that was a wonderful thing. And I must, at this stage, pay tribute to David Bowen, Lord rest him, because he brought me into this environment, and without him, I certainly wouldn't have made the progress I did. He made a big impression on me. In fact, he made a big impression on me right the way through my whole career. He was an ex-Arsenal man, and one of the things he said to me, which I didn't follow through, was he said, when you go to Arsenal, you never leave. Well, I did leave, but I did have an awful lot of respect for him. I thought his knowledge was superb. I thought his awareness and team tactics was fantastic. And I think he was been playing at international, having played at Arsenal, I think he was quite able to handle himself.
So Northampton are now a First Division club for the first time in their history, and within minutes of getting there, manager David Bowen was talking to Brian Moore.
David, many congratulations indeed. Thank you, Brian. What have you done with yourself in the last few minutes that you've learnt that you are now a First Division side?
Well, I've only heard it about 2 or 3 minutes ago, rung my club, and of course I just nipped into the dressing room and told the boys that Bolton drew. There was such an outcry there. I thought the best thing to do is to come out.
Are you surprised you got into the First Division so quickly?
No, I don't think anything. I think nothing's impossible in football, Brian. If you have the right kind of people around you that are prepared to dedicate themselves to the game, I think then that you will get success.
Yes, and this is the key to your success.
Oh, undoubtedly.
The dedication.
Dedication from the boys.
Well, scenes of jubilation amongst the cobblers after this match. All I could get from manager Dave Bowen was a massive grin, a punch in the ribs, and a joyful quote that went something like, "I knew we were going to take this one, but oh boy." And oh boy, he well might say, for it was every bit the walkover that the score suggests. On a treacherous pitch that found men starting in one direction and sliding off in another, Northampton Town skated rings around Bury. Their 2 goals in the first half hour, scored by Kiernan and Brown, set the tone for what followed. Bury had their chances but chucked them away, and they could make nothing of Northampton's stonewall defence, in which Foley was outstanding. The attack pivoted faultlessly around strolling Joe Kiernan. What a cool customer he is, scheming well while often lying deep. Brown played a casual game too, and it was left to Hunt at inside left to produce many of the fireworks. Towards the end of the game, Bury made a desperate attempt, and Harvey stood up to a fusillade of shots from every angle. But it was much too late. Northampton were well content, and wisely so, to lock the doors firmly on their victory. A victory, let it be said, blessed with good luck, but laced with a basic brilliance that defies anything but the best of prospects in the First Division.
Everton away. Yeah, we got mullered. 4-1, was it? 5-2, wasn't far out. They had a few good players, Everton, and that's the sort of thing I'm on about. They had so many good players, Alex Young, Derek Temple. I can remember some of them players, and they were proven players, and they knew the game. Everton were Everton, and we were just coming into that particular situation.
The biggest difference we found was the actual finishing power in the First Division. I mean, when we won promotion, I think we cleared about 25 to 30 goals off the line. But defenders cleared them off the line. With the goalkeeper beat, we cleared it off the line. But in the First Division, you don't get a chance to clear off the line. Because once it falls to them, your Dennis Laws and your Roger Hunts and your Jimmy Greaves, you don't save it on the line. It's a goal, full stop. And we found it very, very hard. The quality of the finishing for a little while in the First Division was way above what we were. All right, we're expecting to be good, but it was a bit better than what we thought it was going to be, I think.
We're in the top league, and when I came here in '61, I didn't think that we'd play in the First Division in '66, I can assure you that. And probably a lot of the other players didn't either. But the team did change. The Third Division team was a different team than the Second Division team, etc.
I love playing in the First Division. I mean, it's all about confidence. It's all about confidence when footballers play. And the year we won promotion, I was looking forward to every game because I believe in my ability and I believed I was going to play well, and I carried on to the First Division. And I mean, we took some hammers in the First Division.
Neat play by Gilson, sending Clayton through, and a chance to Saul to make it 2-0, and that's the second one. Goal to Frank Saul. Good player and good move. You'll see him put that ball through, and there's this famous Tottenham congratulations act. I wouldn't say they were actually kissing, but they seem pretty happy about things. Frank Saul scoring the second one, and the outlook a little bleak now for Northampton after 57 minutes. Hennessy. The ball back to Hennessy. It came from Barnwell. And MacArthur's pass this time, not finding its target. Good run by Graham Moore. Out to Lyons. And goes the centre, a pretty good one, and a good header, and it's a goal! Saluting the cameras and the crowd there. Centre forward, Bobby Brown. A tremendous leap and a tremendous header to make it 1-1 in the 31st minute. There are men of steel in the middle of the Forest attack and in the Northampton half-back line as well. Been several pretty sturdy old clashes. Hennessy then to take the free kick. Up it goes, MacArthur up there. And a chance now to Wignall if he can shoot, and it's a good! That's the goal! Great volley from just inside the box. 2-1, gave Coe no chance. And there is, inside right, Frank Wignall getting the congratulations of his teammates. And there are the happy Forest supporters waving their banners and their scarves, anything that'll wave at that second goal. So at least that means that Hinton's miss when he hit the post wasn't so important. 2-1 then to Forest. And 24 minutes of this half gone, 21 minutes to go. Small penalised, but to me that seemed quite a fair jump. Back to Leake, Leake hooking it, and can Lyons get onto this? Across the goal, and nobody there, but this is going to be a chance to Hunt. On target, and it's a goal! A great back header, back heeler. Great back heeler by Leake. And that then could be the first win for Northampton. Good play, first of all, on the left by young Lyons. A good shot by Bobby Hunt from the edge of the penalty area, and Leake, as he so often does in that goal mouth, flicking a foot one way and the ball nestling in the corner of the net. And what a lovely sight it was for these Northampton fans, cheering themselves madly now.
Precious little footage of the Cobblers in the top flight still survives. But that game against West Ham in front of 15,367 at the county ground was their first ever win in the top division. It was the 14th game of that campaign. In all, they won 8 games at home, including a 2-1 defeat of the eventual second-place side Leeds United. But away, it was a different story. They conceded 6 goals at Leeds, Blackburn, above whom they finished 13 points, Manchester United and Stoke City. A Bobby Brown hat-trick helped them win 4-1 at Fulham, and goals from John Mackin and Graham Moore contributed to a 2-1 win against Aston Villa, over whom they did the double that season. But they were the only games the Cobblers had won on the road. So, despite finishing so far ahead of Blackburn and only 2 points behind Fulham, after one season with the elite came the tumble back to where it had all begun. The team that for a season had lived with the best in this country had also made their first forays into Europe. It wasn't quite the European or the Cup Winners' Cup, but their endeavours were recognised by a grateful club who'd also reaped the financial rewards of increased attendances. Both before and after the First Division season, the directors sent them on tours to Germany, playing in Frankfurt, Hanover and Trier. Many appreciated what the squad had achieved, and the players themselves certainly felt they'd been slightly unfortunate to lose their top-flight status.
The Fulham game done us. I mean, if we had beat Fulham up here, I think we would have stopped up. We would have stopped. We were 2-1 up at half-time, and we're playing very well. And I mean, I've told this story a million times. You know, just 10 minutes into the second half, Bobby Brown's beat the goalkeeper, and the goalkeeper's struggling back for it because it was a slippy pitch, and he's got to it and pulled it out, and honest to God, I mean, I was the nearest to it, and the ball was over the line by that much. It was over the line by that much, and Jack Taylor was just behind me, but he looked across his linesman, who should have seen it, but he'd slipped, didn't he? Keeping up with the play, he'd slipped and he was at 20 yards on his backside further down the pitch. And I turned around, I says, come on, Jack. He says, I'm sorry. I'm looking for my linesman. I can't see where it was, I can't see if it was in, but from here, John says, I'm sorry. And that would have made it 3-1. And I think we would have carried on and won the game. But fair dues to Fulham. They came back and scored 3 and run out. Well, the winners, really,
I felt that we made a mistake by early on not getting the players that were necessary to play in the first division and to be outstanding. I'm talking about people like Graham Moore. Had we had a little more substance within the framework of the club, the whole club, I think we would have survived.
My best memory of the first division was playing at Old Trafford and the great Dennis, who I thought, Dennis Law, was there. When I nutmegged him, and I wasn't a nutmegging player. I wasn't a nutmegging player, but he came charging in, so I nutmegged him, and he came charging back again, and I nutmegged him again. But I didn't get very far. He whipped the blooming legs from me, and up I went down there, and I landed on the floor, and he came up and he patted me in the head, and he says, I don't mind you beating me, Joe, he says, but don't take the piss. Now, it wasn't my biggest memory wasn't not the 2 nutmegs. It just, he says, Joe. And I thought to myself, Christ, he knows my first name. And that to me was, I thought, oh yeah, Dennis Law knows me by my first name. And let's be right, we'd only come from the 2nd division and he'd been playing, he'd been playing at the top. And as I say, it wasn't the 2 nutmegs. It was just the idea that he says, don't take the piss, Joe. And I went, whoa, he knows me.
The team was a good team. It wasn't an individual sort of outfit, it was a team. And I think it was mostly money. If they could have just bought 1 or 2 extra quality players, it was every chance. The fact that they went down with the highest ever points for a relegated side proves that they had something.
Well, we deserved another year. I'm not saying Northampton Town would have stopped in the 1st division. I'm not saying that at all. But I thought we deserved another year anyway,
Almost as quickly as they'd hit the peak, they plunged the troughs again. Relegation from the 2nd division followed immediately in 1966-67, and 2 years later it was back to the good old 4th. The flirtation with the upper echelons had ended. That season, 69-70, the county ground witnessed one of the more incredible exhibitions of the footballing art. If it wasn't so breathtaking, most Cobblers supporters would be happy to extinguish it from their memories. Instead, most couldn't help but sit back and enjoy it.
It was the biggest game to hit Northampton probably since they got in the 1st division, and the town was buzzing for the days leading up to the game. We did things that we hadn't done for years, like we went up to the Westone Hotel and we had steak, whereas normally we had egg on toast, and we travelled back to the county ground in a coach. So we arrived back at the ground around about 2 o'clock, and of course the place was absolutely mobbed with people. So that made a nice change from turning up sort of the 5,000 or 6,000 people that were there to find there was about 21,000 people at the county ground.
Of course, as a Cobblers fan, you wanted them to win, but when it got to 3-0, and George Best had sort of started to do this brilliant solo act, you kind of then stood back and just admired this skill and thought, well, you're seeing a bit of history in the making today, and you kind of watched it as a neutral rather than harbouring hopes that the Cobblers would come back and win.
I think the difference in class really showed, and George Best, for a man that hadn't played for 6 weeks, had been suspended. There was even a doubt as to whether they were actually going to play him, because John Aston was playing at the time, and apparently had been playing very well. But needless to say, he did play, and he absolutely tore us to ribbons. He was something else. I thought he was something very, very special.
We stood on the cricket side, and the first minute was as dramatic as any I've ever seen in football, because Man United with Dennis Law, Bobby Charlton, Nobby Stiles, Paddy Crowend, etc., and of course George Best, went down the field, should have scored, can't remember who missed. The Cobblers cleared, went straight down the field, and they should have scored. I mean, within the space of the first minute, both teams missed absolutely clear-cut chances. And that really sort of set the tone for what was undoubtedly the most extraordinary game.
But I always say, you didn't play as well that day. I mean, you might think it's a stupid thing. He didn't play as well that day as the first game we played against him at Old Trafford, when he was only just turned 17, when he beat us 6-2. It was absolutely, and that's the first time we'd ever, we'd heard of him, but that was the first time I'd seen him, and he was absolutely awesome.
Dixie McNeil. Oh dear. Curran forward for Kidd. In the middle is Morgan and Best. Book could lose it, it's Best! Georgie Best! Well, what a comeback! What a way to come back into big-time football. Georgie Best, 1-0. Felton waiting for Kiernan to come across to him. Well, he can hit Kiernan now. Best, well read by Rankmore. Good jump then by Dave Sadler. Ferren through for Best. Here he goes again. Georgie Best. What a beautiful bit of running by this man. This is Crerand being chased by Kiernan. Waiting for Morgan to move. Here's Willie Morgan. There's Kidd. Oh, great save by Book. A wonderful try by Kidd and a great save. At the moment, this is certainly a game that is going to be remembered as, well, almost a Best birthday. Fairbrother. Charlton feeding Kidd. Best free in the middle. Willie Morgan coming over to help Kidd now. And a chance for Best. Here's the hat-trick. There it is eventually. Well. Georgie Best makes it a hat-trick. But that third one is the easiest he'll ever score. Rankmore. Did well to get the cross across. McNeil. Edwards hacks him down. And the penalty spot has been pointed to, I think. Mr. Baldwin moving across very slowly. Penalty it is. Nevertheless, a foul in the box. Must be a penalty. So the chance to drag the scoreline back to 3-1. Frank Rankmore. Already a couple of penalties. And he's missed it. It's McNeil and he's missed it too. Fairbrother was in with a second shot then. Well, it just isn't Northampton's day. Four men forward, Kidd on his left, Morgan in the middle with Best, and on the far side is Crerand. Brian Kidd. Saver then was Brooks. Kidd again. Here's Best. Number 4. Georgie Best, just the tiniest touch. Touch for Kidd. Brian Kidd. Kiernan forward for Dixie McNeil. Dave Sadler, sure as a rock. There's the substitute, Burns. Right in action right away. Best going through the middle. He's on for 5. There it is. Oh, Georgie Best. And what a difference this man makes to any front line. There's George Best. 2 Burns. Has Kidd forward on the far side of 2 unmarked men. One of them is Willie Morgan, who should get another goal here. No, Kidd does. Well, you've got to feel sorry for Book then. He made the first save, dropped the ball, and Kidd whacks it in. That's number 7. Number 4 running is Clark. That's a good ball. There's Large. And now Dixie McNeil. It's there. Dixie McNeil gets one back. Well, there he is, the hero of Northampton, who makes it 7-1 now. Fairfax in trouble with that pass. Willie Morgan, Kidd on his left. Burns coming through forward of him, and Best out on the right. Here's Best. Oh, what a great save. Tremendous shot and a great save from Book. Very nearly the record that time. Here's McNeil. Large is onside, being chased by Sadler. Could be in for one here. Right across the goal mouth. Well, when nothing goes right for you, absolutely nothing goes right for you. Kidd not able to move as fast as he was earlier. Kidd, who's twice been down with an injury, is Crerand. Best. Here's the record. There it is. Georgie Best sets a new scoring record for Manchester United. 6 goals in a game. Rankmore getting it forward as Kiernan moves in on 4-5 defenders, United defenders. Fairbrother. Cross ball, Large going in, and he's got it. Frank Large. And George Best has already taken up his position on the very far side of the field there, and he's first away down the tunnel too. He wasn't going to wait. Already down there behind those policemen, George Best, the hero of this game, has gone. George Best, 6 goals. Brian Kidd, 2. Large and McNeil getting the 2 goals for Northampton as the crowd piles onto the pitch. Well, they paid high prices for this game today, and they've certainly had value for money. 10 goals, well, you couldn't have better than that.
At the club in 1970, though not playing in that famous FA Cup game, was a young man from Irchester. Philip Neal had been with Wellingborough Celtic before going to Tottenham Hotspur, and then returning to his home county and the Cobblers. What he went on to achieve would make Neal arguably Northampton Town's most famous footballing son.
I was a great Phil Neal fan. I didn't think he could defend at all. He was a very poor tackler, I thought. But he was absolutely superb going forward, and I did write something to the effect that Phil Neal could go a long way in the game. Having said that, I had no idea at all that he would go on to play for a club like Liverpool.
At the time at Northampton, he was very, very versatile. He played up front, midfield, wherever Dave Bone wanted him to play, and Phil was a true professional in every sense of the word, looked after himself well, and I think you'll find, if you've not already spoke to him, that when he was leaving to sign for Liverpool, he was considering going part-time. He was going to go to Kettering, I think.
I mean, the great thing about football is that one manager will think a guy is worth £1 million, another manager will think he's a free transfer sort of person. And Phil had the chance to go to Tottenham as a kid, but he'd chosen, I think I'm right in saying that, he chose to go to the Cobblers, and he'd had 8 years of really getting nowhere, and he'd played under loads of different managers, and the story he always told me was that he fancied being a school teacher, a PE teacher, and to do that as a sort of a much more sort of worthwhile career and combine it with part-time football. And Ron Atkinson, who was manager at Kettering Town, was very, very keen to sign him. And fortunately, Bill Dodgin took over, recognised his potential, and the guy went from strength to strength. So really, Bill rescued his career.
I played in every position, really. I started one season, I always remember, I started one season up front. I'm thinking, oh, great, mate. I've scored 8 goals in 9 games. I'm thinking, oh, this is what I like. All the kind of razzmatazz of scoring goals. And I can't remember who's in, because the years rolling, you're asking me to some 30-odd years ago. I mean, well, certainly 20-odd. So it's hard. I don't know who was in manager or whatever. But I started off 8 goals, 9 games. I thought, yeah, I found my position. Somebody gets injured at the back. Who goes back there? Yeah, Nearly will go back there. Yeah, who gets injured in midfield? Yeah, Nearly will come in here. So I still finished up top goal scorer that year with 9 goals. So we may have got relegated, I don't know, but I thought, hey, I've had a hell of a start. I remember actually when against Cambridge United, early on in the season, I've got a picture of it. It's probably the only one I've got a picture of me slotting, coming in at the far post, having made a forward run and just tucking it away. Something that I was going to do in my international career and at Liverpool as well. So it was nice. I was still got that attacking tendency, really.
Trouble in the end because Oman had read it well, and Oman is hurt. And Brooke tries to get by Collins, and he looked as if he was fouled, but certainly this fellow was. Buchanan, so a free kick. Robertson has come up on the far side, but it's for Phil Neal here. Can he set one up? Neal, and it's rebound off a defender, off Lil, I think it was, but the goal will be credited to Phil Neal. And the Cambridge defence quite definitely expecting the cross to the far side for Robertson, who'd come up, but pushed quickly aside to Phil Neal. He had time to set it up and hit it. Only man in the middle is Felton, but the fullback has crept up with him. Here's Phil Neal again. Does he have another go? Neal! Oh my word, what a well-hit shot. So, 2 goals from Phil Neal in 2 minutes changed the game completely. And my word, he took that one well. A bouncing, awkward ball, he hits it on the volley, and it looked as if Peter Vasper had got it covered, but the sheer power and speed of it beats him.
October 74, that fateful day where he brought me into his office, said, sit down. I said, well, I didn't play that bad in goal, did I? Saturday against Rotherham Boss, you know what I mean? He said, no, do you want to go to Liverpool? I said, where's the car?
Alan Starling, the goalkeeper, got injured, and so Phil went in goal, and the Cobblers won 3-1, I think. And a guy called Jeff Twentyman, the Liverpool scout, was in the crowd. Now, I think they'd been, I'm not quite sure of the story, but certainly that was the last game they saw him at. I'm not even sure they were actually watching him that day. And on the Monday, he signed for Liverpool, which took us all by surprise, most of all, Phil.
Dave Bowen had already started the motor, I think, and we went up and done the business, and I think I signed for £10 a week more than I was getting at Northampton, so it wasn't a great colossal, I wasn't going for the money. That's
He went on to have a great career, totally beyond anything even Phil could have anticipated. All those England caps, 50 England caps, European, you know, scoring in the European Cup final. So although I thought he'd go a long way, I didn't think he'd go anything that far.
I think it taught me to have resolve, to believe in, to keep going. To believe in, yeah, I can still become a first division player. And John Gregory, he left soon after me, so the two of us achieved something that probably every apprentice at Northampton, probably they stood still want to achieve. We all can't do it, but I had a fabulous career after that, and I say that hard 7 years at Northampton really stood me in good stead.
Phil Neal went on to win 6 Football League championships, 3 European Cups and 1 UEFA Cup, 3 League Cups and 50 England caps. An individual record most clubs would be proud of. John Gregory was another 70s Cobblers product that went on to win caps for England. His finest moment in claret and white came in the 75-76 season, when, under Bill Dodgin, they headed up again.
Yeah, I remember the season well, and it was really at the start of that season. I'd been sort of linked with 1 or 2 clubs, as you do, and I've been linked with a couple of clubs who were coming and looking at me and so on and so forth, and I really felt that season was going to be make or break. I was coming up to 22, I think, something like that, and I knew that basically if I didn't go that season that I was going to be there forever, because I was going sort of past my sell-by date, you know, where clubs were prepared to take a gamble on me, and I really made a conscious effort to, you know, be totally focused.
Sounding like a typical Northamptonian here when I say probably my outstanding memory of John Gregory was him missing a penalty against Swindon Town, which was it was one of those where, you know, he nonchalantly turned round, stepped up, kicked the ball, and it went over the bar by a merry mile, and there were plenty of groans on the Spion Cop that evening. I think we still won the game, but no, in fairness, Gregory was a very skillful skillful player, typical of the breed at that time, because there were some good players in the Northampton side, and no surprise really that he went on to play at the highest level.
Mid-70s we had that good year where we got promoted to the third division when it was us and Lincoln for the championship. I think one of the best memories of that season was we played Bournemouth at home, beat them 6-0.
I think it was about 1-0 to about, I don't know, 5-6 minutes before half-time, something like that. And then 5 goals went in 8 minutes. So it must have been a bit before that. It was about 10 minutes to go to half-time. Then suddenly 5 goals went in 8 minutes. You blinked and they'd scored another goal. 6-0 half-time. You know, everyone was relishing a football, not a football score, a cricket score.
And we said, right, we'll have an opening can every time we score a goal. So it was okay. We scored after 11 minutes. Thought, right, get the first can open. Drank that down. And it was just, we were all over them. They had a few chances to score as well. It was quite an even game. And then after about 34 minutes, the floodgates just opened. We scored again, so another can. And about 2 minutes later, we scored again. We hadn't finished, hadn't finished the first one. And then we scored again. And in a matter of 11 minutes, we scored 5 goals. I think we had 2 cleared off the line, a couple of penalty appeals turned down, and at half-time it was 6-0. And I think if the referee hadn't blown the whistle for half-time, we'd have just kept scoring. It was just incredible. But the second half was a complete letdown. Obviously, the players went in half-time and thought, well, this is it, game's over, we don't need to do any more. But I can't remember a great deal about the second half because I was still drinking cans of beer.
Now Bournemouth pushing more players up for this one, including centre-half Morgan. This is Battle. Morgan's on the edge of the area as Miller is well challenged by Best. And the centre-half is absent. Can Jim Hall get through? It's past Haig. Jim Hall, what a great goal! Butler. Grapes is right over the far side. Out comes Starling. Jim Hall with Morgan, his Stratford. Away goes Farrington, it's a good move. And it's there. Coming up fast on the inside, Billy Best. Hall's the only one up front. Stratford's gone up to help. Phillips against Grapes. Hall against Morgan. He's lost him. And there's Stratford. There's another one. Best again. Miller almost losing his balance. Robertson. Now Stratford. Hall turning against Morgan. Still manages to keep it, but Howard gets away. And here's Hall, it's on his left foot again. Grapes has switched flanks. Gregory doesn't need to challenge because he's taken it over the line. Butler, Farrington's still coming, there's Hall. That's a hat-trick. Well, what an extraordinary finish to this half. Here's Buttle. Phillips challenging, in goes Robertson. Best. Hall and Stratford's going. It's 6. So this, in theory, should be a home banker, but of course life isn't quite like that. Otherwise we'd all be in the south of France. And that's a good one for a start. And that's one from David Carlton. And 30 seconds on the clock as David Carlton scores his first goal of the season. Quickly taken to Farrington. Gregory. Robertson's over the far side. Springer stays where he is. Robertson's in there. He should have been out. And I'm sure he realises that. Stuart Robertson with his 4th goal of the season. Phillips made a present of it. May's coming now. And that's Best, that's Hall. And I'm afraid that's another goalkeeping error. A push by Brown, he says. Nobody agrees with him though, apart from the spectators. Here's Tucker. Well up by Farrington. Hall gets in there on the good left foot. And there it is. By Billy Best. David Carlton, Farrington over there. Farrington whizzing by Chambers. Now another opportunity. There's Best. Hall. Oh, what a run by John Farrington out there, and they're going over to congratulate him, absolutely deservedly.
We played in the old 3rd division, and it was tough for us all there because we'd just got promotion the year before with Lincoln, Graham Taylor's side, and it was hard. The standard of football was that much better. We didn't really have that much money to spend, and we basically had to get by with the players that got us promotion the year before. But yeah, I mean, I can remember lots of games that year where we were basically on the back foot most of the season. And I had not a bad season. Alongside Stuart Robertson at the back, I played alongside Big Robbo, who was brilliant for me. He really brought me on a hell of a lot. He used to head him, and I used to pick up all the bits as much as possible. But yeah, we went down that year, and luckily for me, you know, I didn't have to suffer the 4th division again.
While the talented Gregory went on to brighter pastures, the fans and the rest of the players were living life in the 4th once more. But just 10 years later, it was time for the old bouncing act again. The squad of 86-87 under manager Graham Carr is still fresh in the minds of many Cobblers fans, not simply for winning promotion, but for the way they did it.
The football was better than it was in the 75-76 season. You know, we'd go to games, and even if we let a goal in, we thought, well, it doesn't matter. We're going to win. You know, we'll win. Doesn't matter how many we let in, we'll always score one more than them. And you know, seeing the likes of, you know, Richard Hill in full flight was unbelievable.
That's it. You just go up there, and you'd know for sure they would win. It's just a matter how many goals they were going to score, and that was a tremendous year, and really caught everyone's imagination.
The quality in the side it couldn't be matched by anybody else, and we were just streets ahead of everybody else. And when you looked at Phil Chard was wanted by Coventry City, and at the time Northampton turned the offer down, and Phil Chard couldn't get in our team on a regular basis. So it just sort of says the quality that was in that team.
There was a lot of flair in the side. There was a tremendous amount of flair, and there was always, if one of us was having a little bit of an off day, then somebody else would, you know, verbally turn in a performance and get the goals. We also had a great home following. Second half of games, we might go in 2-1 down at half time. Second half, we'd be attacking the hotel end. And even before we came out at half time, we knew that we were going to get back in the game.
Benji did very well for me at the time. I mean, I scored the goals, and everybody was watching me, but Benji has got to take a lot of the accolades for what I achieved. He did very well for me, and you know, his experience as well, because he'd been around in the league a lot of time, and he used to give me some, you know, little bits of information that were very good, and his experience shone through, and it did help us. But Benj was quite a character. He was good for the laugh, Benj, and he was always easy to wind up.
Yeah, I got a player of the year, which was I thought I was very surprised really. I thought Richard Hill, Trevor Morley, one of them two could have easily got it, because I thought they were exceptional players, particularly for that level, and the fact they'd come out of non-league was for me amazing, because I thought they were very good players. Dave Gilbert was another good player, probably my favourite player. I think tremendous ability I thought he had. So you know, we had some good players. really, and they all played well, you know, throughout the season. I was just maybe a bit lucky.
We were just so stronger than all the other teams. Physically, we were fitter than any other team. Physically, we were stronger, and we were just better players than all the other teams. And I can remember games where we'd gone 1-0 down. We'd be at home and we'd gone 1-0 down, and like the lads are just, so what? We just knew we was going to win the game. It was, so what? I think it was the first home game of one season. It was against Aldershot, and I think we went 2-0 down. Well, it could have been 2-1, but we were losing, and we just, so what? You know, and we ended up winning the game 4-2. We just knew we was going to win. We just knew because we were fitter, stronger, and the way we played, it just allowed me to go and get into the box. So, although I was sort of a midfield player and I would line up as a midfield player, we were basically playing with me getting in the box, and you'd also got David Gilbert and Eddie wide on the wings and just sticking the ball in, and that's where Warren Donald was very handy, because he just used to he just hang around in the middle of the field and just kick everybody that had the ball.
Most of the country walks on what Northampton produces. It's the home of the shoe industry. Output from this factory alone is 32,000 pairs a week. So it's no wonder Northampton Town are inevitably known as the Cobblers. And as a football team, they've known spells when the whole country has walked on them. But now they're not just top of the 4th Division, they're on schedule for more than 100 points, all with a team inexpensively put together by manager Graham Carr.
Yeah, well, I've been in non-league football for a long time. I've been managing in 11 years, and I brought 3 of the players from my previous club, Nuneaton, and they've all came here and improved. And 3 of the other players I brought, 2 from Frickley and 1 from Boston, who I'd seen quite a bit in non-league football, and they'd also impressed me.
Now, that was a long apprenticeship you served in non-league football. Did you begin to believe you might never make it in the higher grade?
I did, yes. I don't think if I hadn't lived in Northampton, I mightn't have got the chance to get this job, so I was a little bit fortunate there.
Richard Hill has scored more league goals than anyone in the country. Add on these 2 in the FA Cup and you'll have a total of 26, and that's not gone unnoticed in higher divisions.
This club's watching, that club's watching, you pick the papers up and you read about it, but I like to think it's not bothering me.
Do you have ambitions there?
Of course I have ambitions, yeah. I'd like to play higher up in the 1st Division, of course, same as every player in England. But I would like to play there with Northampton if possible. But if somebody could assure me that they was going to be in the 1st Division in 3 years' time, I'd like to stay here.
That 86-87 squad went on to take the title at a canter, accumulating 99 points and scoring 103 goals. Richard Hill was soon transferred to Graham Taylor's Watford for a cobbler's record receipt of over £250,000. Carr's side spent 3 years in the 3rd Division, finishing 6th and 20th before being relegated. Although the form on the field was disappointing, Cobblers fans had grown used to the yo-yo existence throughout the leagues. At the start of the 90s, however, there were far more serious problems to consider. At the beginning of the decade, there was time for the Cobblers to notch up another notable FA Cup upset, eliminating 1st Division Coventry City in the 3rd round in 1990. Steve Berry scoring the winner in a 1-0 win at a very muddy county ground. A year later, though, under chairman Mike McRitchie, the whole existence of the club became rather precarious.
I remember the day that Mr McRitchie came on the pitch as our new chairman. It was at home to Darlington. I don't know if it was in Oman, we got absolutely hammered that day. But I remember it was coming towards the end of 91, so little bits on Anglia News. I was hearing bits from friends on the fanzine that wages hadn't been paid. And it all came to the head at the end of the year when I discovered that there was 2 months' wages hadn't been paid. We were worried.
We started to get very disturbing rumours about the financial position of the club. But nobody would come clean, nobody would tell the truth. And a group of us got together and decided that we would have to hold a public meeting. It was the only way in which we could force the club to tell the supporters what was actually happening. And I remember a group of us getting together and organising that public meeting, which I was asked to chair, and it took place on the day after New Year's Day 1992, of course, at the Exeter Rooms.
We'd heard rumours that the club weren't going to attend, so there won't be many people there, and I arrived there. It was heaving. There's people everywhere. It was packed, and I was like stuck over in the side of the room. Yeah.
I think there's a fire limit of about 300, and we exceeded it by, by 300. Some of the players were there, and then we heard sort of just before that the club were going to attend. Well, Theo Foley was going to attend, and Paul Clark, who was McRitchie's sort of financial advisor, for want of a better word, I think. But McRitchie himself wasn't going to attend. He got another engagement, or he was at a dinner dance or something. Again, I don't know.
Every other question was how much debt the club in, and it was estimated to be 940,000. And I know when I heard that, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't see really how we were going to come back from that. I mean, to a Premier League club, 940,000 is peanuts, but like a Northampton or a Halifax, it's too much.
In the end, they wanted to form an independent trust. And there were two purposes to that trust, which still hold good today. One was to raise money for the football club, but not for the chairman. And to be totally accountable for that money back to the supporters who had contributed it.
The new dispute began before Saturday's game against York. Supporters Trust members were making a pre-match collection when they were asked by Mr McRitchie to leave the ground. He claims the supporters are holding on to the money they raise because they want a say in the running of the club. But any help should be with no strings attached.
A letter here now. I'm not going to, I won't read the person's name out because they won't want to remain anonymous. This is from Sandy in Bedfordshire, came through the post today. One of quite a few, by the way. £25 cheque for the Cobblers. Now that's what I call a supporter. No politics, no nothing. The same as the people who contributed in them buckets today. They don't got no axe to grind. They just love the club.
Almost £3,500 was raised in Saturday's collection, and Supporters Trust chairman Brian Lomax says they're quite willing to make money available for the club's current needs, but they'd want guarantees over how the money was being spent. They'll meet again on Wednesday to discuss their next move.
And there was a tremendous uprising of feeling in the town and in the whole county. We received money from all sorts of quarters, from factories, from families, from old age pensioners, who were sending money in. They wanted to save the club, and they saw us as a way of doing so. Now, we were never going to raise enough money to save Northampton Town Football Club, and I think I ought to say, and I want to say at this point, that the vast majority of finance, additional to the gates, which has come into the club, has come in from other directors.
I think the McRitchie era was a difficult time for the club, to say the least. But again, I think it was the catalyst, because once he put the club into administration, the administrator quickly recognised the way forward for the club and approached myself and a few others with a view to managing the club on a day-to-day basis. And once we'd taken the club under our wings, we then managed to obtain the shares, which have been distributed democratically amongst the current board members, and the council were happy to open negotiations about a new ground again.
The club found its feet at board level. From at one point being 99% certain of folding, the rescue package at least assured a future. On the pitch, however, there came other dices with death. May the 8th, 1993, and a trip to Shrewsbury. A win would prevent them from tumbling out of the league altogether.
Got to Gay Meadow, it was heaving with Cobbers fans. Again, the atmosphere, you could cut it with a knife. And there's a lot of people, I know people who couldn't bear to go. I know a very good friend of mine who couldn't bear to go that day. I couldn't bear to go, but I had to be there, I had to witness it. I had to be there. If they went out of the league, then they had to have my support. I had to be there for them.
It was a worry that we could lose. If we lost, we could, be out of the league. And it was just, with all our financial problems, it was just too horrible to contemplate. We just thought, well, will we be able to ever bounce back if we do come out?
Tommy Lynch put Shrewsbury in front. Then a slip by Terry Angus, letting Carl Griffith. Shrewsbury, who needed to win to go into the promotion playoffs, with 2 up. Northampton down, but not out. Phil Chard scored just after half-time. Then substitute Pat Gavin hooked in an equaliser, 2-2. And from Halifax, the news that Hereford had taken the lead. Northampton were to get one more lucky break, a second goal for Gavin. 3-2 Northampton, safe at last.
We've got nothing to lose, we've gone for it second half, and we've got what we deserved here today, second half.
If we show the same determination we have for the last 10 games, a bit more luck, I think we'll be in the top 6 next year.
I honestly think that people will learn from these things. We don't want this every week, do we? We don't want this every year. And I'm sure that the people at the top don't want it either. And they have learned their lessons. They've seen the problems. And I have enough belief in them that they'll arrest those problems and we'll go forward.
A year ago, Northampton could have folded, but administrators stepped in to sort out the club's finances. Chard stepped in to sort out the team, and he had to make the most of limited resources. These players can't be faulted for their commitment, but the relief was obvious.
Yet another scare followed the season after. The club finished rock bottom of the table, but a vote of thanks must go out from all Cobblers fans to Kidderminster Harriers. Northampton Town only failed to drop out of the league because Kiddie's ground did not meet league requirements. An irony not lost considering the state of the soon-to-be redundant county ground. No history would be complete without focusing on the club's home for 97 years. The county ground has heard and held stories and memories spanning nearly the whole of the club's first century. Like every ground for every club, it's held its own unique charm, irrespective of whether you loved the place or hated it. A replacement venue had been a constant promise throughout the decades, but it wasn't until 1994 that the time came to say goodbye.
Oh, the good old county ground. I miss the county ground. I mean, that's where I obviously, I was taken to in the early days. Cricket side, I think I've stood on every side of the ground, sat in the stands, been in the hotel end.
Just at one game, and there was an axe on the pitch, had obviously been left from changing the ground from cricket to football, things like that, and hundreds of can tops on the ground. It was deadly dangerous, but we just accepted it and just carried on playing.
Come in the wrong end, and there was a reserve team cricket match on, and my wife Sheila said, "You haven't signed for these. Haven't you been here before?" So I said, "Yes." He said, "They haven't even got four corners to the bloody ground." And that was my wife, Sheila, who's a lovely person and doesn't swear, like I just did then.
I can remember when they bought a temporary stand-in, and it was a lorry with the sides out. And I'll never forget, we was training on the pitch at the time, and it drove up across the cricket side, and the lads were just in bits. They were like, "Oh no."
Something about the hotel end. I've heard of someone who's got a bit of a hotel end in his garden. He's got one of these, what do you call them, crash barriers, and he's there at the end of his garden, a cigarette. I'd like that in my garden.
To be fair, it was one of them places. I think we, in the away dressing room, the tap must have leaked there for about 12 years on the trot. I mean, I actually remember going there with Birmingham, and about 2 years later going there with Ipswich, and the same tap was still leaking.
This was the long goodbye. Northampton had planned to leave the county ground at the end of last season, and over 6,000 supporters turned up for their game against Chester. But work on the new Sixfield site only began in January, and hopes of moving in here in time for the start of the new season were always optimistic. So the turnstiles at the county ground had a 5-game reprieve.
We've got some memories here, and everybody's sort of standing here saying, well, I can remember when I was little standing over there, but I think everybody would be pleased to move to the new ground, yeah.
Something that's been talked about for 50 years or more, and nobody ever thought it'd come off, but looking at the state of the ground, they definitely need one.
It's just the atmosphere under this shed here that, makes the difference. It's better than shopping, isn't it?
What would it be like then to go into the county ground for the last time tonight?
Well, I thought Chester game was the last game, and I had my emotions then. So tonight is just a bonus.
Nearly 5,000 turned up for the last game at the ground, which Northampton had to share with Northants Cricket Club. Over the years, there have been many highs and lows. The team won promotion from the 4th division to the 1st in successive seasons in the 1960s.
Pretty good one, and a good header, and it's a goal!
Dave Bowen, the manager in those days, was there last night. But the atmosphere was never going to be the same against Mansfield, who took the lead after 19 minutes through Steve Wilkinson. Northampton had their chances in the second half. Neil Grayson hit the bar with a thumping shot. But we sensed then that Northampton weren't going to get anything from this game, and they were denied again when Martin Aldridge had a shot saved by Jason Pearcey. Some supporters were reluctant to leave afterwards, but eventually the lights went out on football at the county ground. On Saturday, they reopened for business again at Sixfields, a new all-seater stadium which has cost the Borough Council over £5 million to build. Barnet to the visitors, it's likely to be a sellout. 7,500 will be there. There won't be too many people sad to see the doors close on football at the county ground.
The first game at the new purpose-built Sixfields Stadium took place on the 15th of October 1994. From having arguably the most dilapidated ground in the league, they now boasted one of the finest. And as the club moved home, it signalled the start of fresh optimism and a new era. Martin Aldridge was the first cobbler to score at the ground in a 1-1 draw with Barnet that day. Ian Atkins took over the managerial reins in 1995, and in the club's centenary year he took them to the 3rd Division playoff final and led the club out at Wembley for the first time in their history.
We get on the bus, we go off up the A1 to Hartlepool, usually on a Tuesday night, or down to Torquay, that's another one that they usually put on a Tuesday night. This morning we got on the train and went to Wembley. Yeah, like, what am I doing? This isn't real, you know.
It was just an amazing feeling, the fact that I was going to see my team play at Wembley. And I think 32,500 people felt exactly the same.
You know, if you're in the press box and, you know, you've got to be sort of impartial, and even if you follow the side you're reporting on, you know, you've got to be restrained, got to be calm, you know, good feeling though it is, just log it down. Of course, get to Wembley, and, you know, I was pretty calm for 89 minutes.
It was a just reward for everybody, really, the supporters, the directors, and the players as well, because they had worked extremely hard. And I think once we got there, the players knew you could get a sense of feeling that whatever happened on that day, we were never going to lose a game. It didn't matter how well we played or how many chances the opposition may miss, we were always going to win it. And you just had that feeling that we were going to win and get promotion.
Rain. Now White on the charge for it. And the clearance was by Edwards.
A bit of a wrestling match now.
Keith Walker again and White tangling. Referee allowing play, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. The White showing us there, he has got a bit of pace. Just get the ball behind Walker and Edwards, which has been so difficult for Northampton all day. 2 minutes of injury time played. Surely a goal now would be enough. Is there to be one? Hurled in by Hunter. Sampson up for the header. And there's Lee challenged. It's a dangerous position in which to give away a free kick, but that's exactly what Keith Walker has done.
I thought Roy Hunter was going to take it the way he was shaping up. And to be fair, we were screaming to Franey to get on it, and he has got a wicked left foot, and he can bend them over the top or around the side of the wall. And obviously when he stepped up to take the first one, he hit the defender, and the referee blew again. You just sensed that he was going to go in.
I thought, well, yeah, it's extra time now. I couldn't quite believe it when the referee ordered it to be retaken.
The one I knew was Hunter, and Frame was standing over the ball, and I just saw this ball come round the wall.
And we were screaming again really for John to take it, and as I say, he's got such a good left foot on him. He kept his composure, a fair bit of power behind it as well. He didn't actually go right in the corner, but I think Roger Freestone really thought it was going to come back over the top of the wall, and he got wrong-footed.
Hunter to the left of it, Frayne to the right of the ball. It's Frayne! Absolutely incredible! Just as Ian Atkins was expecting extra time, just as the fans were possibly pondering on it even going to penalties, it's a direct free kick, and it's John Frayne who's got it, and surely now it'll be the only goal, and the only goal needed to take Northampton into the second division. What a goal! And it's turned out to be virtually the last kick of the game, because the referee has blown for full time, and just when it seemed that they'd written off all their hopes,
certainly of ending the game in normal time. A jubilant Ian Atkins has steered his team into the second division.
And that was the first 100 years. We shan't be around to see 2097, but there's little doubt the first century has fatefully ended on a high. And so what are the prospects for the Cobblers' immediate future?
Ian is a very single-minded man. He knows what he wants, and we wish to support him in achieving it. I believe he'll end up a manager of a top club, and my ambition is that this is the top club of which he's a manager.
This video on the history of Northampton Town could not have been made without the generous support of Nationwide and Elite Business.